Hello there, it's the Future Programmer here, and in this Python Fundamentals tutorial video, we will be making a fun Notetaker program in Python. We will be practicing our skills at handling external files using Python since we'll be storing data on text files in our computer. So without further ado, let's get started. There really isn't much that I can say in terms of the details of this Notetaker program, since there are many different ways of how this program can be implemented. Feel free to be as creative as you'd like though. The goals that I have in mind for this program include the program being able to create and save new notes based on what the user inputs. And the program will also be able to display the content within old notes that the user has saved before. The key concepts of this program include opening files and performing file operations. In addition, we'll be using pretty much everything that we've learned throughout this entire Python fundamentals course. We'll be using things like functions, conditionals, loops, lists, dictionaries, and many other things. Firstly, I would encourage you to try this program out yourself, take a few minutes and write a few lines of code, and think about how you can implement this program. And then, I'm going to show you how I have implemented this program. Before we get started writing our program, there are some files and folders that we will need to make on our computer since we'll be working with external files. Right now I'm in File Explorer and I'm at my C drive of my computer. Feel free to navigate to any other directory on your system as long as you can access it. The first thing I will need to do is to right-click, hover over New, and make a new folder. And this is where our program and the related files would live. So I'm going to call this Notetaker. Then I'm going to double click and enter this directory. Then I'm going to right click again, click on New, and make a text document. By default, a text document is going to have a .txt extension. I'm going to change this extension, so I'm going to highlight everything in the name, and then I'm going to call this notetaker.py. Feel free to call this whatever you like, but make sure to end it with a .py extension. And then I'm going to press enter. Windows is going to ask whether you would like to change the file extension. I'm going to click on yes. And now you can see this file is now a Python file, meaning that the Python interpreter would be able to run this program. Inside this folder, I'm going to make another directory. So I'm going to right click, click on New, and make a folder. This time, I'm going to call it Notes. Right now, this folder will be empty, and our program will be writing the notes files inside this directory. And that's all we need to do before we can get started writing our program. So now we're ready to get started writing this Notetaker program in Python. I have opened the Notetaker folder that we just created in Sublime Text, which is my favorite code editor where I will be writing this program. Feel free to use any other editing environment that you would like. So I'm going to open notetaker.py, which is the Python file that we just made. Let's first think about what we want our program to achieve. Well, its first functionality would be to take notes, right? It will be able to take whatever the user inputs and write it to a file inside the notes folder. So let's make a function to do that. So let's define a function called take notes. It won't take any parameters. And inside this function, let's first ask the user what notes they would like to take. So let's create a variable called notes, which is equal to whatever is returned by the input function, giving the prompt of please enter your notes below. And I'm going to add a \n so the user starts typing on the next line. And then we just need to write whatever the user has inputted into one of those files in the notes folder. So we want to use with open. The open function takes two parameters. So file name and mode. And for mode, since we want to write to a file, make this W. File name, for now, I will leave it as it is right now, but I will be creating a file name variable in just a moment. So I'm going to open file in a writing mode as a file object called file, and I'll call the file.write method passing in notes. Now we need to deal with the file name. There are many different approaches in how you can organize the different text files inside the notes directory. You can make it, for example, 1.txt, 2.txt, 3.txt, and so on. Or you can make one file for a single user and perhaps store multiple notes inside that one file organized by, say, the date and time at which is taken. The approach that I'm going to go with is I will make one file for each notes that the user takes. So, for example, now I take notes, then it will create a file to store that notes. And to distinguish between different files, I'm going to make the file name something that will tell us when that note was taken. And for that, I'm going to import the time module in the Python standard library. Since it's built in, we don't have to install anything and we can just use it. So we'll write import time. And the time module has a function called strftime. And I'm going to pass in a string. I'll explain what this does in just a moment. So basically what this does is it will take the current time right now and format it in a way so that it will say the year, the month, and the day, and then a hyphen, and the hour, minute, and second. So essentially, if the time right now is the year 3000 and it's, say, December 1st, then it will be 3012:01. And the hour is, say, it's 2 o'clock, so it would be 02. And then the minute is 11, and say the second is 22, right? So that's the file name. We want to add the file extension .txt, and since it's in the notes folder, we want to add notes and then slash. So let's do that here. Note slash, and then this file name with a extension .txt, not slash txt. So let me delete this line, and let's see if this works. Let's actually give an output of notes taken here. So let's actually add a new line and run this program after I call this function. And we can see, please enter your notes below. I'm going to enter my notes, which is hello world, and then press enter. And we can see notes was taken, and there is a file created under the notes folder that stores hello world. The file name tells us that this notes was taken in the year 2021. It's July 17th, it's 5:39:18. So everything seems to be working with the take notes function. However, there seems to be a little problem of sort that we can try to fix. Right now, if I run this program and enter a single line of notes and press enter, that single line of notes is taken and stored inside a file. However, chances are your notes are longer than one line. So right now we aren't able to store multiple lines inside those notes files. So I want to give you a little challenge and think about a way how you can make it so that we can allow the user to input multiple lines and store those lines inside a file. So right now we have a single line of notes, and I want to make it so that it's maybe line 2 and then line 3, right? So that's your challenge for the moment. So take a few minutes, pause the video, and try to code this out on your own. So assuming that you have now tried this challenge out yourself, I'm going to show you how I will do this. So the approach that I'm going to take is to store notes rather than it having been a string and directly writing it into the file. I'm going to make it so that notes is equal to a list. And so each string inside this list will be a line that we will write to the file. And instead of grabbing the input using this prompt, I'm actually going to first print out, please enter your notes below. Let me just drag this here and delete this line. And we can see we don't actually need this line. So notes is equal to an empty list for now. And while true, we want to take user input as whatever the user inputs and notes.append the user input. This works just fine, but with one problem. Right now, this is an infinite loop and it will never exit. So let's put a condition. So if the user input is equal to a certain message, so if a user types a certain statement, then we will break outside this while loop. I'm going to use the message exclamation mark END exclamation mark. So if the user enters this special statement, I'm going to break outside this while loop. Otherwise, we will add what the user has typed into notes as one of its elements. When we write this notes inside the file though, we cannot just write a list. We will have to, let's try this. So \n dot join notes. So essentially what this will do is if I have a note of A, B, and C, this is the list notes. And then when we write notes inside the file, it will be written as A, B, C. So this statement is going to join the elements inside notes by a \n. So the elements inside notes will be joined by new lines. So that's exactly what we wanted to do. And let's see if this works out. So let me run notetaker.py, line 1, and now if I press enter, nothing happens. So that's good. Line 2, nothing still happens. So line 3, and let's just end this by writing exclamation mark END exclamation mark. And feel free to customize this message as you would like. I'm going to press enter, and you can see notes is now taken. And in this file, we can see line 1, line 2, and line 3 as the content. So everything is working perfectly, and the take notes function is working well. The second functionality that I want our program to achieve is to view the notes stored in files that were taken before. So I'm going to make a function for that. Let's call this function view notes. It won't take any parameters, and its implementation will be, we will first have to determine which file the user wants to view. We can either ask the user to type out this entire long file name to do that, or we can assign an ID to each of those files. So maybe this will be ID1, this will be ID2, and this will be ID3. And if the user inputs 1, we'll open this file. If they input 2, we'll open this file, and so on. So let's first create an empty dictionary. Files is equal to an empty dictionary. Right now it's empty. After we populate it with values, it will look something like this. So it will look, for example, we'll have 1 corresponding to a string, which is the file name of this file right here on the sidebar. And we'll have, say, 2 storing this file name. So that's how this will work. So for each file in os.listdir, which I will have to import first, import os, so we can use this function. We've been mostly passing nothing into os.listdir, but we can actually pass in a folder name, in this case, notes. So for each file in the notes folder, we're going to add a key value pair to files. The key is going to be the ID, so 1, 2, or 3, right? We want to keep track of that using, let's call it index. Index is equal to 1. So files will have a new key value pair, the key being the index and the value being the file name. And after we use up 1, we want to increment index by 1. So the second time the loop runs, this second file is going to have an index of 2, and so on. So now we're able to kind of correspond an index to the different files in the notes folder. Now we want to give the user the option of choosing. But before that, we need to determine whether there are any files in the notes folder to begin with. So if there are files, we want to do certain things. Otherwise, we want to just print out no notes available. Right? So we want to see if the files dictionary is empty. If it is empty, we want to print no notes available. Otherwise, we will print out things for the user to do. So I'm going to paste this in. ID file name. And this will be kind of a header that will allow the user to see what is the ID and what is the file name. Now we want to iterate through the index and file in files.items. So files.items is going to return key value pairs in the way of index and then the file. So for each key value pair in the files, we want to print out, firstly, the string version of the index plus a space, and then the file name. Let's see if this works. So let me run this program. Before I do that, let me just call the view notes function. And we can see ID1 file name is this file right here. This is the other file, and this is the last file. So everything seems to be working fine, besides the fact that this is not indented properly. Just actually remove one of those spaces and add another here. Run this, and the format is a lot better. So now we're able to print out the IDs and files inside the notes folder. Now we want the user to choose which file they would like to view. So let's create a variable called file ID, which is equal to input, enter the ID of the file you want to open. And so now we have the ID. We want to find the file name corresponded to that ID. So file will be equal to files with the key being file ID. But since file ID is a string, while index, we can see it was an integer. So we want to convert this into an int first. And then we want to open the file and display the output. So let's just print out a statement saying content in file, and then a colon. And then we want to, with open, notes, and the file in a reading only mode as f, since we used the file variable here as file, we want to print out f.read. So let's see if this works. Notetaker.py. I want to open, say, the first one, which should be hello world. And we can see indeed the content in this file is hello world. Let's try this out with the third file, which is the line 1, line 2, line 3. And we can see the output is indeed correct. But there is a small problem here. Right now, we're entirely relying on the user's ability to memorize when they took what notes. And I know for one, I would not be able to remember where, or I guess when I took what notes if I have, say, 20 files inside this directory. I would not know when I took, say, this notes. So let's give the user the ability to see a preview of each file as we print out the index and the file. So that's the second challenge I'm going to give you today. Take a few minutes and try this out on your own. So basically, as we present the ID and file name, also add in a content right here so that the user can see a snippet into a particular file. So assuming you have tried this out on your own, I'm going to show you how I would do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually paste content here. So now we have ID, file name, and content. Think about this as a table of some sort. We have column, headers, ID, file name, and content. How we can get the content? Well, we can just simply, with open, notes, and we want to add this to file as F. Notice how I didn't pass an R as I did here, since it's actually optional as it's the default value anyways. So content would be equal to f.read. And let's take a look at whether this would work. Notetaker.py. And we can see hello world, a single line of notes, line 1, line 2, line 3. Well, right now, line 1, line 2, and line 3 isn't exactly how we want it to be, right? So it's on multiple lines. Let's see how we can fix that. Well, we can, after we read the file, we can call the replace method of the content and replace each new line character with, say, a semicolon and a space, like this. And then let's tackle another problem. Right now, my notes have been fairly short, but if someone decides to write a 100-line or maybe 1,000-line program in one of those text files, or perhaps an essay, then we don't want to show the entire essay as it would probably take up a lot of space in the output. So let's just show the first 50 characters inside the files. So if content is, or not content, if the length of content is less than 50, choose whatever number you would like here, by the way. So if the length of the content is less than 50, we want to print out the entire content. Otherwise, we want to only print out the first 50 characters. So I'm going to use slicing here. So square brackets, colon, 50. And let's just throw in a ... at the end to show that there's more in the file. So now if I run this program, we can see, first of all, this is now on one line. And I guess we can't actually see whether the 50 character limit is working. So let me just make this take notes and try to take notes. Let's just type the letter or the number 1 many times and see if this would work. And notes is taken. This is now 172 characters, if you can see down below. So this is more than 50. Let's run, oops, I didn't do that. Let's make this view notes. And we can see this is a lot less than 172 characters, and we can see the ... at the end. So that's working as well. Now we have view notes and take notes working perfectly. We just need to write a main function to wrap everything up. So now right now we have to specify what option we want to do. So what function we want to run every time we run the program. Ideally, we would have a main function that will allow us to choose from a menu. So main function, and in here, I'm going to print out welcome to Notetaker. Feel free to make the name more creative. And I'm going to write a while loop. So while true, I'm going to print out the options for the user. I'm going to print out menu. Option 1 is take new notes. Option 2 is view old notes. And option 3 is to exit the program. And option is equal to input select menu option. Let's just convert this into an int, since that will be easier to deal with. And if option is equal to 1, we would run the take notes function. So there's that. Oops. Elif option is equal to 2, we would view notes. Elif option is equal to 3, we would break outside this while loop, so we would end the program. Lastly, we want to print out invalid option. Please try again. And after we exit the program, after we run the break, we want to print out a goodbye statement to the user. So we would write Thank you for using Notetaker. Have a great day. Again, feel free to customize this to whatever you would like. So that's the idea of the main function. Let's just run this function. See what we get. Welcome to Notetaker, menu 1, 2, 3. Let's try 1, take new notes. Let's try I am using Python. I love using Python. And then end. The notes taken, view old notes. Let's try last notes. So number 5, I am using Python. I love using Python. Let's just exit the program now. As a slight bonus, you may see that right now this output is very crowded. So how can we clear it up a little bit after each input or output? Well, in here in Notetaker, or in command prompt, if I write CLS, press enter, you can see the prompt above was cleared. And I believe in Mac or Linux, it would be the command is clear. Essentially, there are commands in command prompt or terminal that would allow you to clear the output. And using Python, we're able to mimic that behavior by pretty much just calling that command. So I have the OS module imported. And basically what I'm going to do is, after I enter the take notes function, I'm going to write os.system CLS. If you're on Mac or Linux, you would want to change this to clear, or maybe leave it as CLS if you would like to try. And if you're using an editing environment like IDLE, this may not work for you, but it's worth a try. So os.system CLS. And after, or I guess rather, after we enter the view notes function, we would do the same thing. And before we print out the content in the different files, we will do the same thing. And let me just copy this and paste this before we print out welcome. So let's see if this works out. So notetaker.py. Welcome to Notetaker. We can see the prompt above was taken out. So menu 1, 2, 3. Let's just take in new notes, and you can see the output is a lot nicer. So let's just try my last notes for today. I will be back tomorrow. And then end. And we can see notes was taken. Let's try view old notes. And the options is a lot clearer as well. So let's try 6. Content in this text file would be those things. And let's just try to exit now. And you can see everything is working just fine. And in just 68 lines of code, we're able to write a fully functioning note-taker program in Python. Congratulations on completing this project. Good job on completing this note-taker program. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Future Programmer YouTube channel if you'd like to learn more about programming. In the next and final video of this Python Fundamentals course, we will be making one last project to practice everything that we've learned throughout this entire course. With that said, thank you very much for watching and happy coding!